Everybody knows that the hoplites wielded the aspis as a shield, the shield that gave birth to the phalanx style of warfare and categorically made the hoplite the heavy infantry of the ancient Greek battlefield. However, there is another style of shield which seems to be far more mysterious and has a lot of questions about it that we see, that being the so-called Boeotian shield or the diaplon. This shield is really an interesting style of shield, as it is actually quite different to the aspis, and we know that a shield like this was used in the Bronze Age, the diaplon, the original one, which was likely made of wicker and other organic materials. What makes this shield particularly interesting is that this is well after the Bronze Age, and this is when we typically use the name Boeotian shield. We see this style of shield depicted in artwork from the Archaic period, not really in the classical except for on Theban coins, which is why it gets the name Boeotian shield, as because Thebes is of course in Boeotia. And this shield has quite a large debate about its authenticity. Is it really a style of shield that still existed and was used into the Archaic period? Or is it an artistic throwback to Homeric era heroes and never actually existed? Today we're going to talk a little bit about this sort of forgotten and mysterious ancient Greek shield and give some points for and against the idea of its use in the archaic battlefield. So first, I think what's important to outline is that this specific shield that I have made here is a very circular diaplon, essentially an aspis with cutouts. This is a style of aspis, I suppose, that we see depicted in archaic era artwork. However, it is very much unclear whether this actually existed or if this is an artist essentially trying to depict a heroic diaplon shield in an archaic context. The sort of true Boeotian shield is actually more of an oval shape. Fundamentally as well, the shield is held differently to the aspis. Whereas an aspis, you typically hold your shield arm bent, the diaplon or Boeotian style shields feature a straight grip. We also very much see this pose depicted when we see it in art. So the arm is outstretched, which then makes this blazon upright, and it's held like that, which is similar to how you typically hold an aspis in one-on-one combat as well. We also interestingly often see Boeotian shields depicted with having a scaled front, and I believe that this is quite possibly a wicker shield, which we know existed, many earlier shields and even classical shields, some of which were made of wicker, with a perhaps leather coating and actually has scales stitched on as a means of giving it a bronze facing without having to use very large sheets. This is a theory at the end of the day, but so much of ancient Greek history is, especially when it comes to warfare. But I think it makes quite a lot of sense. We know that many of these shields were organic. We know they were wicker. They were very, very light. To stitch scales essentially the same way that you did to armor to a shield facing is a time-consuming but realistic way of giving a shield a bronze coating without having to have and dish and shape massive sheets of bronze like we do also see. But that doesn't answer the question, was this shield still in use at the time of the Archaic period? And in short, we can't say. And I have very mixed feelings about this. The Archaic period does seem to be a period of warfare which sees far more open styles of combat, which means that a shield that is held and used differently to an aspis isn't necessarily a problem when it comes to more individualistic fighting. In fact, this stance is very much ideal for an individual style of combat. It is widely depicted in this period as well, however, often in a very obscure way. It is essentially depicted as an aspis with the whole internal fittings the same as an aspis with cutouts, some of which again circular like this one. This could quite possibly be an artist who has never really seen a diaplon shield trying to depict one in art and basically messing it up and making an aspis with cutouts. Or this is a real shield that existed for a brief period of time that was essentially an aspis with Boeotian shield cutouts. For me, I don't think that we should completely reject that as a possibility. I often think people are very, very quick to throw down unusual things as artistic license, which quite possibly weren't artistic license. I could see certain individuals wanting to, have a more Homeric appearance by basically having an asterisk with cutouts. And I could still see an ancestor of that diaplon shield still being in use for the early archaic period. I don't think it was particularly common, but equally it could very much be artistic license and a throwback. We often see, especially in the archaic period, Homeric era heroes depicted in archaic panoply. It is highly possible, and I think highly likely, that we would have also seen Homeric era sort of items used in an archaic context in the artistic world. It is certainly a very interesting shield and a very interesting question that, unfortunately, as with much of the ancient Greek period, we really just can't answer. So those of you that have asked me about the Boeotian shield, that is sort of the debate. Did it exist? Maybe. Was it the same as the diaplon shield? Probably not. It is highly possible that it is an artistic throwback to Homeric era heroes depicted in archaic artwork. We can't prove that. We can't disprove that really either. For me personally, I think just the sheer amount of artistic depictions of this shield existing, I think it's highly possible that there was a shield that was highly resemblant of the diaplon shield or the Boeotian shield that was still used in the archaic period. But again, it might not be. Was it essentially an aspis made in the way of a Boeotian shield? That's also possible. Maybe there is, again, basically emulating your own heroes, some hoplites of the archaic period wanting their aspis to resemble more Homeric shields, but equally as well, the fact that we see aspides depicted like Boeotian shields could indicate an artist that has heard of a Boeotian shield and doesn't really know what it is. So again, could indicate the fact that it is an artistic throwback. So maybe a bit of a lackluster answer for you there of we don't know. Maybe you can make your own opinions and tell me what you think in the comments as well. I'm personally very much in the middle when it comes to this debate. I think you can equally argue both sides, and I don't think we'll really ever know. Maybe I'm leaning a little bit more on the side that I think we shouldn't toss the artistic evidence aside that this wasn't a real shield that was used. We see it in all forms of mediums. We see it in sculptural and vase depictions. We have no archaeological remains of them, but we don't have many archaeological remains of aspides in general. And if it existed in any era of sort of hoplite warfare, the early archaic period, I think, makes the most sense. We know it was still used around the geometric period, of course, into the Bronze Age. We see very, very similar shields. So I think it's highly possible, but I also do think it's very much possible that it is an artistic throwback to past heroes. What do you think? Let me know down below, and a special thanks to our channel members for supporting the channel. If you yourself would like to support the channel more so than you already do just by watching the videos, then checking out our channel memberships can be a great help. Also sharing the video around to try and help these very niche topics reach the people that might find them interesting. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one.